All right.
So, hey everyone, happy Friday. I'm going to do the intro officially in just a little bit, but in the meantime, hey and hi Omar, and thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is my first interview ever. Well, really, since I relaunched my channel and kind of stepped away from crypto. So this is my first interview off of my show. I only had Griff Green on, who's like an Ethereum OG on.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm trying to connect again with crypto folks. So thank you
Hmm.
so much for having me on, man. I haven't chatted with you, I think, since back in like what was our last interview? 2019.
Something like that. It was a long time ago. I don't even remember. I do. All I remember is the beginning of 2020 when I started this show. Before I started the show, I reached out to you first of anyone to be like, "Hey, I want to do a show or something like channel. Do you have any advice?" And you gave me some good
Yeah.
advice that really tided me over. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, the channel's
Did
here because of
anything particular that you feel like helped your channel that you took
it's
or
hard to
started with?
it's hard to tell exactly because I over the years so much has been like internalized, right? To where it's like
Yeah.
which part of that, but I think the consistency is something that you mentioned that I you know which is kind of what I've done. This is this live show. I mean, I upload regular kind of things and interviews and stuff, but this live show has been every Friday at 3 4. I mean, this is 189. This is the 189th episode, so that's
Wow.
189 weeks. Without there's a few times there's like, oh, I'm traveling, I can't do one, or there's also a couple of non-numbered versions like specials like a holiday special or something like that. But
Hmm.
189 weeks is pretty consistent, and so that worked out.
Yeah. How's that YouTube algo treating you
Not
specifically? Because we can
good.
check. No, so
No.
consistency once a week, not as much. Maybe.
Yeah, so traditionally, like I have to say, like YouTube has been the least kind to me. Like X, when I upload and stream on X, it turns out a lot better and things like
Yeah.
that. And I do that too, obviously. YouTube is I've never done well on YouTube. Some of my posts on X have gone really well, gone viral. There's been a couple, like one of my things on I tweeted something about BlackRock and it did really well, and then Forbes was like quoting my post and stuff like that. And it's
Yeah.
like nothing on YouTube could ever get that way for me. Just like
Yeah.
I don't have that the whatever the je ne sais quoi of like YouTube.
Yeah, I think like there's some sort of like inner blessings that have to happen, like whatever the opposite of shadow banning would be, like light
Yeah.
shining, so the spotlight that you have to get, and it's just yeah, again, like we were talking about before going like, audio live. I don't know if the video's up yet, but yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
basically yeah, covering that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, anyway, yeah, it's tricky to blow up on YouTube unless you're kind of greenlit. So like, okay, so my example with that I was going to mention was trying to relaunch my show, and
Mm-hmm.
like we had spoken about back in the day, and you've seen, and I'm sure you've experienced what it's like to kind of get blacklisted or shadow banned or whatever it is. In my particular
Mm-hmm.
case, it was like Facebook deleting my huge group that had like 120K people in it,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't give me reasoning for it. They banned all of our personal accounts, like all myself and like 13 moderators on there. It was a kind of a wake up call because I lost all my pictures from high school, everything like that, and
Yeah.
it
I
yeah,
remember that. Oh, it was brutal.
it's kind of like when you hear about divorce, like you put some of your memories in that other person, in that partner. Like part of who you are is
Mm-hmm.
through those pictures and memories that you kind of relive by seeing them. So now I just sometimes get a trickle from like old friends who will post an old picture, and I was like, oh, I used to have that picture, but for the most part, it's gone. And my Instagram was deleted too, but I had a scammer or an
Mm-hmm.
impersonator who had
Oh,
ripped all my stuff off.
they got a free pass.
They did, and I've been trying to contact them to be like, "Can you send me a copy of everything, please, please?" But they haven't checked their messages, and their account is private. But
Yeah,
yeah, so
that's really crazy, and that's one of those reasons why I try to remove my like impact for centralized providers and things like that. X
right,
is the only one that's like I'm a little screwed if they get rid of me. But part of that is like after the sale, after the rebrand and stuff, it I knew there was some like free speech minefields I wouldn't step on, like that I'd be clear from, and then
hmm
just the idea of just the growth mentality of we're gonna pay people, we're gonna like we're trying to grow and grow this business, and I just thought it could be a good place to grow, and so far it's turned out pretty well. That's the only one I've actually kind of studied how to do better on, as far as like YouTube, other than make sure you have a thumbnail, pin a comment, videos at least this long. Consistency is key, like those super basics. Other than that, I haven't really looked into it too much, because for a while, all my friends were getting nuked on YouTube for like saying the wrong word or whatever.
Right.
And,
Yeah, it happened to me too.
yeah.
Strikes. Yeah. Absolutely. So what I was going to say was relaunching the show was interesting because I went through that. I basically, when I got to around, I think 1,200 to 2,000 subscribers, and some like maybe Renee here, who's in the chat, probably remembers this. I got hit with a strike basically immediately for no reason. My channel was suspended in that particular case from live streaming. Usually it's like a 90-day period. There was no reasoning really for it at all. But one of my followers happened to have a connection over at Google. So he had them, and I was pinging everyone and tagging on Twitter, which, like, is probably one of the best ways to get any sort of attention. So he got wind of it, contacted somebody at Google, and apparently this guy put some sort of like note on my account saying like, this guy is good. He's not, some sort of scammer, or his channel shouldn't be taken down. But it made me think about like that green spotlight kind of thing I'm talking about, which is, dang, if I was just anybody else trying to start a YouTube channel, it's borderline impossible right now if I didn't know somebody already, if I didn't have a connections on Twitter or a big following. So that's troubling. It's not egalitarian at all.
That is definitely true. And I do notice at least X seems to be a lot better with like, anyone can kind of blow up if they do the the right things, and right now anyone kind of can. But even then, myself and like I applied to be monetized after I played the game to get the impressions by commenting on big accounts, and I got monetized on like the basic stuff, and then but my subscriber thing was like pending for years, like literally 2 years. I noticed like Naomi Brockwell, another person we both know, had the same thing, and I'm like, man, she can't get it. And it wasn't until someone from X reached out to me for the day job, for the Dash stuff, and was like, hey, do you want to advertise on our platform? And we started talking about that stuff, and I was like, by the way, I don't know if you know somebody, but I would love. And then within like a few weeks later, both of us got approved for subscribers and everything like that. So even then you gotta, like the grease some wheels, or like you gotta like know someone. And it is like the network effect of humanity is crazy, like to where I think like this is something I'm gonna have to write a long article on this about like the value of money and like what is money kind of thing. And a lot of times
you should do it.
Yes.
From your perspective.
Absolutely. And like money is like a substitute for what we really want. And a lot of times the opposite kind of works out too, where if you don't have money, you got to pay in other things. And like social capital is a non-fungible currency, but it's also not invisible. There's no token. You don't have tokenized social points, but you got them. And so in order to bootstrap like a show or whatever, like if everyone knows who you are, or you have almost no stats, but you're like a respected person or whatever, or like, let's say like Ron Paul came out of like nowhere with no following. He would get right to the top of something pretty soon. And otherwise, if you're a nobody, but you have, buckets of money, you can pay your way up there too. And there's like different ways of paying, like what do you got? We accept euros, we accept Bitcoin, we accept clout. Like everyone pays with something. It's just that people have different resources.
Yeah. And it's a matter of like balancing, is this worth what I'm paying for it? And more, I think it's not. Like I was looking at this YouTube page and I was like, how does this guy have 3.23 million subscribers, but he only has right now 5,000 views over the last 11 days. So that just is to me a hint that it was probably bought. It was a bot account, like probably, I guess, bot both meanings of the words. But like I was mentioning before, with AI, we can't really trust these numbers anymore. So I have a feeling that we're going to gravitate even more away from these kinds of numbers, at least subscriber counts and likes and views, and try to find something that is more tangible a metric of worth and what will be worth our attention. And I don't know what that looks like now with AI being so realistic. Like you were speaking about having to translate because you didn't speak Russian in this particular situation, and you had to have a translator there for you. So like looking at these AI videos of animating somebody plus dubbing over them, it would be so easy for you with minimal latency, I imagine, over the next year probably, to have a version of you that speaks Russian that is more real time, because it already exists, obviously, if you wanted to render that video over a longer period of time. But if you're live, it'll be like Google Translate, but video. And I think that's coming soon.
Yeah, it is. I have seen people do like real time translations, and it's like not real time, but it's like 5-second delay. You get everything come out pretty well. It's like actually pretty crazy. And I've seen some of these AI things that morph the mouth to make it look to match the speech and stuff.
Yeah,
like
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
it's already here. Like
and in 137 languages at the same time, possibly.
It's
wild.
like translators, crazy. We should probably roll the intro and actually get going on this stuff as much as we have to like rambling and stuff. All right, intro time. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so hey everybody, officially this time, welcome to the Digital Cash Rundown. It's episode 189. I'm joined by the one and only Crypto's News, or Omar. Bham. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going great. Thank you so much for having me on officially, Joel. I'm super excited to be here on your show. I'm so glad that it's continued and you've kept it up, man. That's great.
Yeah, cool, and very, glad to have you on too. I know you're one of the first crypto influencers, whatever you want to call it, that I kind of knew about in the space, and met you in person a while back at that was it Arcade City or Swarm City at the time? It was one of those events.
Yeah, was that in New Hampshire that I saw you?
Yes.
Yeah. It was I think it was Swarm City. Was it? I think it was Swarm City. That was a neat event.
Yeah, that was really cool. And the guy who produced it, Matt, he's still doing crypto marketing and stuff as of today, so that's very cool.
I was just wondering about him, like getting ready for the show. I was like, well, I wonder what happened to Matt. Yeah, he was a cool guy, hardworking guy. Yeah, he was one of those people that's so nice that I'm like, I don't want to trust them. Like, like my first instinct is if somebody's like overly nice is to be super scrupulous and skeptical, and it's always been like that, even with crypto for me. So I guess translates over that. But he's turned out to be an all right guy.
Yes, and people don't remember he used to own a cafe in Newmarket, where he was I think it was one of the very first restaurants that accepted crypto publicly, like an actual like full-time like restaurant stuff. That was like 2013. I have a picture of me like buying stuff with Bitcoin there. So like way back in the day. And yeah, he's been pretty consistent with that stuff.
Yeah. What was it like for you to live through some of that like time, I guess, between like when people were really hyped about using Bitcoin as cash and transacting in it as a currency and buying stuff with it and getting excited when Microsoft is rolling out accepting Bitcoin and Steam maybe, and then they all walked back on it, and then Bitcoin became more the narrative digital gold being right or wrong. What was that like for you to experience? Were you in a agreement that maybe it might not be the best cash, or did you think that we should continue to promote that, or maybe only under some cases? What did you think?
Yeah, it was kind of a wild time because, obviously, like I caught the bug really early, like 2013. I was like, this is everything. And by the end of 2015, that's all I was earning was Bitcoin. I just was like, I don't want any fiat. And then 2016, I closed my bank account. I'm like, screw that. I'm just doing this stuff. And by the end of that year, I was like, I can't use Bitcoin anymore. So it's like, that's like a speed run kind of thing. And it's kind of funny how like, I made some posts about, people make a lot of funny comments about they're not poor, they're pre-rich. And I like to say I'm not like wrong, I'm pre-right. And same thing of like, you're not, weird, you're pre-normal. It's like all the kind of same ways of thinking about things, which is, it's funny to be joking about. But like a lot of the things about Bitcoin today that people like us were talking about back in the day are like, it's like not that weird to say it today, but back then you're like, oh my gosh, heresy, and stuff like that. And like, just like
conspiratorial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like hijacking Bitcoin on my shelf up there, like that. If that came out 3 years earlier, it would have just been some dumb conspiracy Bcash or propaganda stuff. And just now it's like, some people are mad at it, but a lot of people are like, yeah, a lot of that stuff makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's something about being there in the emotions and already being on one side potentially of that conversation and then doubling down where people couldn't get outside of their own subjective experience. But now looking back on it, especially with so many newer people, I mean, like still, I think the most popular age groups for crypto are between 18 and 35. And it continues to stay down there. So young people really understanding and growing up in this world and then wanting to understand the history of it. What is up with this Bitcoin Cash, this Bcash thing, which I hear less and less about these days, to be honest. Just like crapping on Bcash. They feel like they kind of, I guess, won that victory. Some of the Bitcoiners who were around back then and rooted against it.
Yeah.
At this point, it's like it doesn't matter to them. It's the same thing almost with Ethereum, where it's like, you guys, we told you guys it was a shitcoin. I'm like, but is it really just about the value of it, or is there something bigger there?
Yeah,
Like,
I think the global narratives thing is kind of over. And part of that is because by almost every metric you'd want, Bitcoin has not really done super well over the last 5 years, except for the one that everyone cares about, which is price. And that one has done well, where pretty much nothing else has done close to as well, at least not over that time frame. And so it's kind of like now it's like, it hasn't been win versus lose. It's been more just like going different directions. And so, like, for example, the Bitcoin Cash community today is still out and kicking. They're doing a conference in Slovenia in like a month or so, and building a lot of cool things. But like the whole, like half of the Bitcoin space that was like, well, this is the real Bitcoin. That effect is like gone now. Now it's not like that anymore. It's just its own little project doing its own little thing, like everything else.
yeah.
And I don't know. We're in an interesting time, which I'm sure we'll hit on just a second, bit about like the markets and stuff, where some people say like alt season is over permanently, and it seems like we're in a spot where I think we're starting to see the point where utility is going to be the one thing that gets priced in finally, where meme coins took away all the gambling stuff, and that's where all that action is. But then, yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder, like thinking about AI, just wondering, well, how could we create better blockchains or better decentralized ledgers? Like, what is possible? What are some people working on right now using like O3 mini high or something like that? There might be some wild innovations we haven't even considered that people would want to buy for the utility versus something like just a meme coin. But yeah, I wonder if like the reason that this outside alt season thing is dead, this idea of that, was because of the regulations being so tricky, right? So you have these delistings that continue to
Hmm.
happen across many exchanges. But now it feels like it's turning around, even talking about ICOs potentially making a comeback. I think it was Cynthia Loomis who was mentioning it. Yeah, I believe it was Cynthia Loomis. I could be wrong, of Senator of Wyoming. But seeing ICOs actually come back, I think would open up the doors again for innovation beyond just meme coins. And there would be less fear of regulatory scrutiny, I think, from platforms that have gone the other direction. Like, we can't afford these legal costs, so let's just not list it. And just in case preemptively, let's delist everything except for these 6 coins that you can buy on Robinhood. Yay! And you don't even get the possession of them. I believe you can
Hmm.
now, but you
Hmm.
couldn't at the time. Anyway, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, we're in the midst of a big transition that does set up opportunities for altcoins in new ways, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get on with these headlines and stuff, because
Yeah.
it's been quite an interesting thing. First, I have to do my local regular shilling for Coin ATM Radar, because they reached out to me randomly about a year or so ago, and were like, "Look, we tried to give money to Vlad Kostia, but he didn't he didn't answer. So we like what you say. We're gonna give you money, even though I think we're not gonna get our value out." I'm like, all right, like that's fine. I'll show you for a
That's a
while.
nice deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice deal. So this podcast is very proudly sponsored by the OGs at Coin ATM Radar. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in a random place. And unlike an exchange, which could freeze your account, you truly do own all the crypto you buy. Coin ATM Radar, you can find crypto ATMs and other services that buy or sell cryptos for cash. On the website, look by coin, address. If an ATM supports selling as well as buying, of course, selling is something more important for someone like me when I travel, etc. And you can also search by geographical area, such as country, state, or city, and check and compare actual fees at different ATMs. So go find out more. Go to coinatmradar.com, which is coinatmradar.com. And
Sweet.
as I mentioned, their account is pretty spicy on X too. It's always fun. But
So worth a follow.
a few months ago, because I just use Bitrefill for a lot of things, I did like a random free Bitrefill ad in the middle of the podcast just for fun.
I feel like there's been most of my ads. Like people are like, "You're getting paid by this and this,"
Yes.
and I'm like, "No." Oh, that was the last video's AVAX. Someone's like, I was like, "Is it all right if I include AI content or my own content?" And they're like, "Well, you know, the AI doesn't shill its own bags, but I still prefer your content, Omar, versus the AI version of Omar." And I'm like, I don't even have AVAX. I think I held it like for a very small period of time there, and I followed it. I even interviewed Amin, but I was like, they definitely don't have bags.
Yeah.
So at least get paid for your shillings. A good job on that one.
Yeah, I mean, at least for that. But Bitrefill didn't pay me, but I did notice that because I haven't practiced it, the read is what's so much worse on Bitrefill,
Yeah.
because I haven't done that. So with this thing, I'm talking about the tariffs, right? The tariffs. Donald Trump did some nasty tariffs, which caused the markets to crash, including crypto. And I'm just highlighting this a post from Crypto Wendy O. I'm sure you know Wendy, who
We
just
hung out in LA at the crypto space.
just posted a picture of old Teabag there with the caption, "Is everyone having a good time?" So,
Teabag.
old Teabag, yeah. So, what's your hot take on this whole tariff Armageddon thing?
I don't know. I like people talk about Trump and 4D moves, and to me, it always sounds ridiculous. And maybe it is ridiculous because yesterday we were hearing that maybe he was prompting ChatGPT for exactly how to structure these tariffs. That was some of the headlines. But what is the big move here? I mean, the simplest solution that I can think is not the conspiratorial one of he literally wants to destroy America, so Russia takes over, that you also see out there. I think it's more along the lines of there's two things. One being setting the stage for a future where AI kind of dominates everything. So in that kind of world, it's not that surprising to be forward thinking and letting the AI make the decisions on what these tariffs will look like, since about 30% of the times doctors get a diagnosis right, or something like 90% or 70%, one of those numbers. I apologize, not remember the exact one, of the time when it's an AI giving the diagnosis, it is right. And when you have the doctor and the AI together trying to give a diagnosis, it still results in a lower accurate diagnosis from the AI when you have the biases of the doctor. And so we're transitioning to a world where we realize nobody is as smart as everybody, and the data that's been fed to everybody as these systems get smarter. So I think it's about trying to, again, maybe wrong, maybe very wrongfully so, try to get manufacturing back in the United States and to try to keep everything here so that the US can stay a leader and we don't have China's social credit score AI kind of running things and their bots. So I think that's a big part of it. And the other one, of course, is the Federal Reserve. You hear he wants Powell lowering interest rates, and it's quite a standoff right now, actually, as I'm sure you've read, because Jerome Powell basically came out and said they're going to remain data dependent, and as opposed to thinking these tariffs are going to cause a recession, which I'm sure you also saw that today. JP Morgan increased the chance of a recession to 60% chance coming up. Yeah. So instead of actually maybe kind of forcing the Fed's hand to lower rates because of a coming recession, it's the same thing. Like you always hear, the Fed is driving, looking at the rearview mirror. They're going to wait for the data. They're going to wait for that recession before they potentially lower rates or anything like that. So kind of standing still, and that's not what the market wanted to hear. And I think ultimately they will have to lower rates to keep credit flowing, to keep everything from collapsing. And I don't think that's actually what Trump Trump wants to be remembered for. I feel like he does want to be remembered for having set the stage for the U.S. to do well, and that's what's actually going on here. But of course, there's going to be a lot of pain economically through all these transitions, jobs, everything we hear about. So it's a matter of survival, and I think crypto is a big piece of that.
Yeah, that's one thing that, like, broader in the economy, I never liked the idea of tariffs, of course, but first of all, if they're used to negotiate lower tariffs from other countries, which that's had like mixed results. Again, a lot of this stuff is like we're speed running like an entire 8-year presidency, and then like the last like 4 months, just like things are happening too fast.
Yeah,
I can't.
Has it been 4 months already? I feel like it's just been weeks.
January,
every day.
3 months. Yeah. Okay, about a little under 3 months. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it's just
that much. Yeah.
fast, and everything's going crazy. So, what I liked is the other ideas, which are talking about making U.S. one of the most business-friendly places in the world, getting rid of personal income taxes, killing capital gains for any made in America crypto, whatever that ends up meaning. Like those are the ideas that I like. And it's just like, are you going to take a little bit of tariff in exchange for that? It's like, sure, I guess. But like right now we're just getting the horns. We're just getting the tariffs, and the markets aren't liking that. And it's kind of dumping everything.
Well, crypto is kind of holding up well. And so like we always hear that like stock markets potentially lag behind crypto, since crypto is 24/7. It kind of gets ahead of things. So seeing kind of the stabilizing today is maybe a signal that we should expect stabilization in the market tomorrow for stocks. And there is some uncertainty that's been taken away, though. I mean, the tariffs were worse than what we expected, right? Because we were expecting, we're going to keep China at 20% tariffs. Now we're at 54% or whatever it is, tariffs. And they were a lot worse than were expected. So the markets naturally were going to dump, having expected the wrong outcome. And now I think it's a matter of, can it get much worse? And the market trying to digest these reciprocal tariffs now, because China's not backing down. They're like, guess what? We're going to slap the same amount at you guys. So that is bad. I think ultimately that is working against what Trump kind of wanted. Yeah, he's the best businessman in the world, the art of the deal. But surely he's aware of this. And I think he's got really smart people around him who also don't want to see the U.S. come down. So that's what I mean by this 4D chess move. There are pieces here that we don't know. Today, I read that the NSA director just got fired. I don't know if you heard that one. So this kind of changes the balance of things. There are certainly people out there who've been privy to huge amounts of information, surely are utilizing advanced AI. And in ways maybe not even obvious to them, weaponizing that against other people. So I think like disrupting power in certain ways, it does appear to be happening. And I don't know what the world looks like on the other side of it. And I just hope it's a better one for sure, with whoever comes in his place, and how hopefully more transparently they can operate.
Yeah, absolutely. It is kind of interesting how, like, on the other side, any kind of this like shakeup always changes things, and for like not everyone gets affected equally. And that's kind of a good reminder. I'm going to throw this one on the screen about the this Patrick Scott fellow post. He says privacy coins were the best performing crypto sector during the crash. Monero and Zcash both outpaced Bitcoin over the past 24 hours and 7 days. This isn't about hype. It's macro. Blah blah blah. So tariffs are here. Capital controls are likely next. We'll see. In a world in a world fragmenting into economic blocks, assets that move silently across borders aren't speculative. Censorship-resistant money becomes more of a narrative. So it is kind of interesting because prior to that, like prior to the last few months, or I would say this year, or the last year, privacy-focused assets of any kind have just not done super well. And part of that is because I think in like 2014 to 2017, there's like the privacy boom sort of thing in terms of speculation at least. But then after that, it was like, well, no one's using any of this stuff anyway. Not, privacy aside, no one's using any of it. But then you have countries and regulations coming down, delisting, stuff like that. And then it becomes like, oh, if you're then, especially during the Biden administration, when you had a lot of people going to prison over this kind of stuff. And so, like, as I mentioned on a space today, 4 of my guests on this podcast either are or have been in prison for crypto stuff.
Yeah, I
And
have quite a few of those too.
and I know a few more who have had issues or shut down companies or whatever. And so it makes sense that that would be a bearish narrative. But I kind of get the feeling that, like, now the narrative is flipping. It's really starting to flip these last few months. And maybe 4 or 5 years from now, like when we start getting through this coming bear and into the next bull cycle, that maybe privacy will be one of the top narratives, top selling narratives. What do you think about that?
No, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think it's beyond just like the good things potentially happening for crypto under this administration. Although they haven't mentioned privacy as far as I can tell in any executive order. That's not something they're keen on. But we also have like MiCA regulations in Europe, and those are not great. So this idea of like self-hosted wallets, when those came out, and having to tag them to an individual, completely takes away privacy. And then obviously, I have a feeling capital tax gains are not going to be going away. Trying to actually automate what people pay could potentially be coming down the line. And that could be wrong. I mean, you might not remember a transaction that you had done. Maybe you didn't log that happened 5 years ago. It could have been very minor is the point. But they'll know about it, just like they know about the other forms that they receive here, their MISCs and so on. So I think that, yeah, privacy is going to be super important, and obviously from protecting wealth, but obviously from confiscation, from being blacklisted, from being able to transact. It's just, it does stink in a way though that decentralized exchanges, while great, still don't really allow us to cash out to the predominant form of currency that people use and accept, which is fiat. You can't just like use Uniswap and put credit card rewards into your card that you can pay for yet. And the regulations haven't set that up. And I don't think that they would want to. So it's up to folks to really figure out what works for them, but that requires more friction for most people. It's still just not very easy to live like you have off of crypto. I was hoping it'd become easier. Maybe you were pioneering that by doing that since what, 2014 was it that you went off?
15, I think.
15? Yeah. And yeah, I commend you for having stuck with that and doing it. But the world really hasn't changed that much. Like, I still pay with Visa, MasterCard, Amex sometimes, cash. These are the predominant forms of money. But now with tariffs coming out here, and eventually that forces the Fed's hand, M2 money supply growing, it does seem like very tangibly it's all coming to a head right now, where we're going to be seeing huge shifts. I mean, it was wild just to see where Bitcoin has gotten to right now. I mean, presidents talking about it, having crypto house parties, like, which is ridiculous at the White House. Like, that is, you couldn't have imagined back then in 2015 that it would happen so quickly. So, like, the next 5 years, I mean, okay, for you, give me like an optimistic scenario for privacy coins and crypto overall, and give me the negative. What would that look like in your opinion?
Well, the negative thing is that a lot of like surveillance starts to get built into coins and projects, and kind of like the way we use stuff, and basically you get baked in KYC on chain. There's something that Coinbase is releasing, some sort of a trusted pool thing for a base DeFi where you have to be KYC to be in the pool and stuff like that. And like I still haven't like given an opinion on it because I haven't finished formulating. It sounds awful, like, right away.
No, I think that's like in a way, maybe I haven't even experimented that much with Base, because at that point it really is like corporate. They have a stock, they have shareholders, so it's never going to be. There's no way it can ultimately be the freest cryptocurrency or blockchain that could exist. Yeah, I don't think it's possible. I think something else will, and that's why I still get behind Ethereum. I know folks are behind Solana as well, but I mean, like, looking at transaction volumes, even that's died away. Solana was great for making meme coins and attracting folks, but for actually building something that has utility, I mean, we have seen that on few chains that have been impactful beyond their own project. So, but I think these open and decentralized networks, there's a reason that you have banks testing on them and everything else, as opposed to Base, which does have partners. But I don't think it's going to be Earth blockchain by any means, but it'll have utility, of course, in some cases. And there's room for everything, I think.
Yeah, I guess we'll kind of hit more on that part a little bit later because of the Solana story or whatever. But the thing with on the privacy side, like on the positive side, uh, one thing that's been one of the weirdest but most positive things. Last year, I was at Consensus, and they had a Solana booth or not Solana. PayPal had something for their new stablecoin PYUSD, and one thing in their white paper was a feature called confidential transfers, which is a privacy feature which basically does what old school confidential transactions or CTU did, which is hide amounts but not the transaction graph. So then everyone could see I paid you but not how much. And they're advertising that as a feature for PayPal. And then just in October, Circle, which does USDC, put out a confidential assets framework thing where it was just talking about that stuff. They're also doing CT for this kind of stuff for USDC basically. So if when some of the biggest, most regulated, most like normie safe kind of things start to like prioritize at least some what I call MVP or minimum viable privacy, then I think that the state of privacy of where you just have your publicly known ETH address and everyone just looks in and sees how much of everything you have, all your NFTs, all your history. I think that's just not going to fly in a mass adoption environment, and everyone knows that, and regulators even know this. And so I think that it will be like a meet in the middle kind of thing, like
Yeah.
where you can just buy anything with crypto like free. And I don't think that's going to be so common anymore. I think there's going to be more limits placed on that in the future, unfortunately, in most of polite society. But I do think that the average privacy of our transactions is going to go up. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it is like, at least because of that, the administration and their signaling here positively toward crypto that has like given more freedom to this kind of thing. They haven't outright said you can't have privacy. In fact, they seem to be moving the other direction, which is like, okay, we can build this thing now that maybe we had as on the back burner, maybe we slowed down on. And it reminds me of this chat that Mark Andreessen had. I think it was on Lex Fridman's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know if you checked that one out. It was really long. It was like 4 hours. But
no, but I saw that. I will have to go catch up. Add that to the pile.
It's good. Know? Oh, it's good. That one's good. Like that one kept me going the whole time. Yeah, because obviously he's a brilliant investor. His firm invested in Solana. They raised something like $160 million with other partners for Solana back in 2021. So, I mean, his insights in Silicon Valley tech and everything else for me were captivating to hear what somebody thinks from the inside of what's going on. And somebody who was like close to Trump at the time ish, like the White House, and able to also guide where things were headed. So I wanted to know where his head was at with AI and crypto and everything else. But what I bring this up mainly because he talks about how Hollywood, now that you have Trump in office, now they can go back to making comedies. He said, like he's hearing from Hollywood folks. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, go back to making comedies? So they were self-censoring basically, and doing so again, shipping out America's culture along the world of kind of censorship. And now it's like, oh, we can go back to saying funny stuff and just being ourselves. And it's kind of like that with crypto. It's like now it seems like with privacy that can be explored again. So maybe it's a ripe time because like I was talking before the interview, we saw Ethereum. We see Ethereum down like 64%, 68% over the last year, yet we have Zcash and Monero up positively by the same amount, which is pretty wild to think about, at least for me. Over the last year when we were in a supposed bull market, you have these coins that nobody's talking about, nobody's paying attention to. They're all paying attention to Trump coin, Melania, Solana, you name it, Doge, Pepe, but they're not paying attention to something that has real utility and value for folks. So it's no surprise that Russia gravitated toward Dash, like you were talking about, I believe. Maybe they're ahead of the curve with that regards to privacy, like they are in other places around the world, just like we are ahead in crypto versus stocks, like potentially for where markets could be headed. We're more forward looking and present with that.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing, and obviously we're seeing this with the markets, as you mentioned, but also in like usage and in mind share and stuff. The biggest thing that I think is hardest for like OGs like us to sort of adapt to is the fact that the space is not one space anymore. And when you're in the early days, like everyone was about freedom
Yeah.
money, everyone was about this, everyone was
We
about
were all
that.
on Bitcoin Talk, checking out
Yeah,
what's the latest coin to mine.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now the kinds of people who are about the stuff that I guess we're about, there's a lot more people than there were in the beginning, but it's just not the whole space anymore. The space is split into pieces. And sometimes when you're looking at the whole of the space, you're like, oh man, I remember when it used to be about all the good stuff. And like the good stuff's still growing. It's just not everything anymore. And so that's kind of what you see with these markets.
Good point.
Like there used to be alt season. Alt season is like, I'm going to maybe I'd call it like alt season is dead forever in the way we used to think about it when everything went up. Everything
Yeah.
doesn't go up. Things go up here and there. Like again, Ethereum maybe have like a rough last year, but then you have like Monero and Zcash have a pretty good last year, and then you have like Solana does. I don't pay attention to Solana, but like this one
So
goes
we got to
up.
buy the blue chips in every category. We got to buy like two AI coin things, like two privacy coins, two
Yes.
open decentralized ledgers, two meme coins that, well, maybe not meme coin. I think that's like a super gamble, meme coins. But yeah, I did find that before, which was like even during these altcoin seasons in the past, like during that season, you had the dashes and Moneros of the world pop, and then they would kind of come down, and something else would explode. The ICPs of the world would get their chance, and it just came in like waves of different baskets. So maybe it's kind of like that still, but there's still so many other projects out there that it gets difficult to try to make those bets. Whereas, like you were saying before, there were fewer avenues for distribution, fewer headlines. I mean, trying to cover the headlines right now is like ridiculous. There's no way. Like back then, I felt like I could cover the most important things. Now I can't. Like maybe a few things in each category, like one
Yeah,
or two things.
because there aren't the headlines. There's just headlines everywhere, and you have to pick your
Yeah.
category of headlines you're going to cover.
Right, right.
Before we hit on the Brave thing, because that was kind of related to the greater privacy discussion, I'm just going to show this kind of shit posty tweet thing about my Cambodian friend sent me 2.6 Solana, and I only received 1.326 Solana from the transfer. They're charging tariffs on crypto now. Please use a US VPN if you're doing anything on chain. And it's just like a dumb shit post, but I love those guys. Just like,
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I hadn't seen that one.
the tariff, because the market has sort of reacted. The crypto market sort of reacted as if that was true, as if now that there's tariffs, now all of a sudden it's being charged on all transaction
Everything's
fees.
coming in. Yeah, yeah. That would be really difficult to set up. I don't know that would be possible to do. I mean, it might be possible with
Don't
the
jinx it.
regular high USD circles of the world, but I don't think with the whole space. I don't think you can anymore drive the whole space in any singular direction. Kind of going back to what you were talking about. It's just taking off everywhere else, and it's the same thing with content creators and again attention. It's like impossible to rally everybody around one single thing. Even when you think something looks clear cut, like that is bad, black and white, and that is good. No, there'll be plenty of shows for both sides. It surprises me sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. So let me highlight this Zcash thingy here. So shielded Zec in the Brave wallet. So basically, Zcash and the Brave team have been working together pretty closely for the last couple of years or so. And Brave has a little wallet embedded in the browser, crypto, like a Web3 wallet, And so they added Zcash support, but shielded Zcash, which, is the way it should be, private by default, right? And so that's kind of finally gotten unveiled. And then they did a new tab takeover campaign for that, so that at least for one day, everyone's new tab, when you opened up a new tab on Brave, it would just show this big thing. This is your money, your privacy, about shielded Zec and Brave wallet. So I just thought that was kind of cool to see happen. I don't know, any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's great. I think, do they still offer the Brave rewards? Like they used to pay you some BAT tokens for like watching ads you would opt in for back in the day, for those who don't know.
I think so. I never really did. I did a little. In fact, I think I am getting them, but I'm just not getting them myself because they made you KYC through Uphold to receive them.
Yeah,
I was just like, man, I'm not going to do that. And so I just auto-delegated them to someone else or something. Maybe I think Kenn Bosak actually. Maybe he's still getting my Brave awards. I don't know.
You got to get Kenn back on the show. I got to get Kenn on soon too.
Yeah, I saw him at Rare Evo last year, and he went and we filmed a nice little interview there, and then it just like never got uploaded. But that's it's he's a he sometimes lets things fall through the cracks. I'm not taking that one personal at all, because then another time I
Yeah.
had was booked on
No,
his
it's
show and I showed up and he just wasn't there and never addressed it
dang.
because he's
Yeah,
just
he gets distracted sometimes. I mean, there's a lot going on, and you
hmm
get pulled in all directions sometimes, especially when you're well known. Like in these conferences, it would be
hmm
like for me, who had like pretty bad social anxiety, if, like and stuff. So I just my brain would spaz out when people were coming up to me, trying to like talk to me and stuff at these conferences and events. But I also was trying to, and this was like I think with the biggest fuel growth for my channel, just to like jump all the way back there real quick, was my thing was I would interview as many people as I could each day at the conference. So I would aim for like
hmm
10 to 15 interviews back when I was a crazy person back in 2017, 10 to 15. So I had to have somebody just watching to make sure that I didn't lose my camera, that I didn't get pulled somewhere else and do this. So usually I had somebody just to help me with that. But yeah, that alone, which to me made sense at the time and still kind of does, is that basically
hmm
you do that interview. It could be really short. You get the idea for the project. I definitely wasn't paid for them. People thought I was, but they were like 5-minute things. But I got to meet somebody cool. I got to have an interesting new perspective. I got to see what kind of problems they were approaching real quickly. And then I would upload the show, share that with them, the link, and then they would share that with their team. And their team might discover my channel that way. So that's kind of how
hmm
I like mostly spread out, I would say. It was not like I got lucky, I would say, so much as I was just crazy and doing stuff like that a lot. And now I guess I got tired of all that stuff eventually, and I realized a lot of these CEOs really don't have your best interests at heart, or they are kind of greedy. Or I eventually got to a head like when I deleted my channel at
hmm
that point. But there's something if you have the energy to that, to trying to interview as many people as you can in the space. And I imagine Kenn might have just, I don't know, gotten tapped out. Who knows? I know he's
yeah.
running Shitcoin conference and he's doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, he's always doing a million things. Like for my part, whenever I go to conferences, I started doing little interview things here and there, just very small. And maybe this next season, I'm going to be a little bit more active. But part of it is like, it's kind of like don't care if whatever project you're focusing on pumps or not because you're too busy or focusing on it. Like I interview people that I like, I really want to talk to. And it's kind of like, I think a lot of people, it's like the actual like Joe Rogan template of he just did what he wanted to do and became super successful. But
Yeah.
it's not as easy as that. But I'm just going to do what I want to do similarly and just not be successful. But that's fine. The problem is if you're fine with just like, oh, me and 12 of my friends are going to watch this interview and they're going to like it, like that's good enough for me, you know?
Yeah,
So,
that's where I'm at basically now with my own show. Is just like I do this, yeah, partially for me, of course, just to stay informed. I really do think that I would be so amiss like if I wasn't paying attention. Maybe not. And I don't know. There's not so many headlines in crypto that do catch my attention so much, but sometimes I will get one that's like, whoa, like this absolutely matters to everybody. But more and more, it's kind of like the day-to-day noise doesn't really matter. So if you kind of zoom out and focus on the bigger picture, it might feed back into crypto. Um, but yeah, like I don't mind doing a show just once or twice a week or whatever, and having less viewers if I know that those viewers are not just there to try to scam users with comments or try to pretend to be me. There were so many different kinds of folks who had malicious intent, who downvoted my videos immediately. Like upload my
mm,
video, immediate downvotes, you get like 70% likes. So having those people gone actually is like super uplifting. Knowing that the OG people of the crypto channel all around is just for me more like having a tribe, which tends to make people happy versus like trying to reach something that you don't have and forcing it, um, and going down that road. Yeah, and but Joe Rogan probably had quite a chance though to blow up because he was on Fear Factor. I mean, we all knew Joe Rogan growing up.
yeah.
Like he was on plenty of stuff. He did comedy every week at the Comedy Store. I think he still
hmm
does. Maybe not now that he's in Austin, but yeah, like it wasn't too much surprise that he blew up. What blew up was, of course, that he was willing to talk about marijuana and aliens and topics. I think that,
hmm
yeah, he was interested in for sure, and people might not have been brave enough to do. But would they have been allowed to get by the YouTube censorship just like Joe Rogan? Maybe not.
hmm Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see. I definitely think, who knows about being. It's kind of like at the end of the day, a lot of people what they do is they try to become kind of too big to fail, so to speak, so that like rich and successful and stuff, so they can just talk to whoever they want and say whatever they want and do what they want. And so I kind of figure I'm speed running that a little bit by just doing that now. And so
Yeah.
if I'm just doing it that at the bottom, like I don't care. I already won. Like what do I need money for at that point, you know?
Yeah, it just is more difficult now because when I started back like in 2016, going out to conferences, Bitcoin conferences, and trying to get these interviews, it was super easy to get the Charlie Schrems of the world in front of your camera, or the Jeffrey Tucker, who I haven't heard about in a long time, to get him on the show. You would just go up to these people and they were pretty normal and easy to get interviews with. But after 2017, it became everybody has security guards. No, you cannot talk directly to the CEO right now. You have to go schedule something with our secretary, and then maybe we'll get back to you. So like the opportunity for growth that way kind of changed. And naturally, as crypto blew up, people became more targets. So it makes sense. So you kind of, I think, have to kind of have more of a name for yourself, or somebody looking out for you. Like you're well known, so people are going to be like, yeah, Joel, he's been around forever, so you could absolutely interview him. And even if you have low follower counts, I'm surprised that people are still down for these interviews. Because maybe it's what you're saying. They want to talk to somebody interesting and just get insights beyond just like follower counts.
Yeah, it's really weird, like the size and fame and things like that, because like at the same time, like I get like baby's first YouTube channel kind of like views and engagement sometimes. But then on the other hand, my mom was opening up some bank account in the other part of the country, and like the bank teller was like a subscriber of mine. I'm just like, oh shit, wow, just some random person with no connection. I'm like, wow. But that's like one of the 100 views I'll get on a video is like that guy, that random person. So it doesn't matter too much. Some people, I'm at the point where I don't know if I ever want to be like universally like recognized. Like so far, the people who come up to me are people that I'd like to have come up to me. It's really nice. Whereas if I got a little bit more recognizable, then you'd have like people that just want something and they're like, oh God, like, I'm sure you've had plenty of those guys over the years that are just like, hey, Omar, this project, you want to have me on the and you're just like, yo, nah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Like nowadays, it's just meme coin creators on Twitter DMs trying to get me to either retweet or talk about their project on the show. And yeah, obviously wholly uninteresting to me. I don't even respond to these people. Well, look at Hilal's comment. Is that how you pronounce that? Sorry if I butchered that. Hilawi. Bosak missing interviews is a feature, not a bug.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think Kenn would agree with that. I actually think Kenn would agree with that. So it's not an insult. And by the way, when I said he hosts a shitcoin conference, I'm not dissing any particular
coin.
That's
what it's called.
That's literally what it's called. If you guys don't know, it's a shitcoin conference, which he runs right next to like the big regular conferences as a joke.
Funny enough, we're talking about the Coin ATM Radar stuff. When I use Coin ATM Radar is when I'm traveling in mostly like Europe and stuff, and my favorite ATM to find is one run by a company called shitcoins.club. It's a really super, it's like they're shaped like a big Bitcoin symbol. You can just sell some crypto, no KYC for small amounts, and it's just like, yeah, it works great way to get cash and play in countries where I don't really know how to spend crypto there. And it's just this deceptive name, though, shitcoins. Like, if that's a shitcoin,
yeah, it's like scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, though. It's cool that you can do that, though, that you can maybe potentially cash out smaller amounts of crypto to fund your living off crypto kind of thing as you travel around the world. And I think that's super nice. I mean, this idea of like crypto nomads is wild to, I think, average people thinking of like just living off an alternate currency and not living anywhere specifically like some of these crypto people do, and just traveling the way. To them, it's like still, I think it's something that people don't really get around crypto and why there's so much yearning for that. Oh man. Anyway, yeah, it's Zcash on Brave. Super cool. So happy just to like say something about that. Happy to hear that it's not just closing the doors that is happening toward privacy coins, but like genuine utility. And that has its own little microeconomy. Like if you have just, 100, 200 people using this that are transacting using this like daily, maybe that's their main thing, how they send money to each other, like Venmo or something. I think that is fantastic. And that blows up from there. So I want to commend Brave. I don't know if it's Brendan still leading that company, but yeah, really nice to see that happen for Zcash.
Yeah, I know they had I went to some like after party for consensus last year that was a Zcash Brave dual sponsored thing, and kind of chatted with them there. I think they've been working on an encrypted private messenger using Zcash for a while. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's going to be part of this partnership, because they did add, I think, transparent Zcash support in the wallet like a year ago or a few months ago or something, and now they're doing shielded. And one of Zcash's interesting features, other than just privacy, is they have it's an expanded memo field for encrypted memos for transactions. So you could just say, "Hey, thanks for the thanks for breakfast, whatever," and put it in there. And it's all encrypted, and people use it for all kinds of stuff. Interestingly enough, Vlad Kostiao, the Bitcoin Takeover magazine guy, he got into like a drama fest with the privacy community, and so he put up a Zcash QR code that had and he just said, like, let's see how many people are willing to donate with Zcash, and like it's like 70 or 80 people gave like a little bit to him, and like a lot of them were use encrypted messages, and a lot of people were like salty Monero people leaving death threats using the Zcash blockchain to encrypt death threats to him, which is kind of, I guess that's a killer app right there, right?
So stupid. That's the crypto space in a nutshell. I love that stuff. Hey, how many people are capable of sending money to this address? How is that even possible? Doubt it. Boom, 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 boom. And then folks like, let me shit on your coin by buying it and using it. It's just so weird.
Yes. It is kind of funny.
Oh man. It is funny though, yeah.
Let's hit on this infected thing, because I actually didn't know too much about this because I'm not in that side of the space thing.
Yeah, I briefly looked at what you said.
Infected.fun. I guess I'd assume it's kind of related to the whole pump.fun side of things, but basically it says, we crashed base and now we're moving to Solana. After building solely on ETH for the past 4 years, we decided to migrate Infected.fun and all of our upcoming games to Solana. There's only one reason for this. Base couldn't handle the demand. And so basically, that's kind of like the long and short of it is they kind of went into that. They did this big long post, and then people from Base are saying, "Oh, that's not true. It didn't crash." And they're like, "Well, yes, it did." And they're arguing in the comments or whatever. But basically, it
says it's a new hyper speculative pandemic simulation game. 30 deadly viruses compete to infect the most population on Base. It says, but obviously they're moving.
Damn.
But it looks like their volume is really, really low, like basically zero. But they made a headline for themselves by bringing this up. So that's one way, to get following, is to shine light on certain issues. And maybe it's the case that it was not working for them, but it really doesn't look like they have much transactions. So maybe right at the outset when you have these snipers and folks trying to get in early, right? But it was just like straight down from what I can see from here. Obviously a dead cat bounce and then just death.
Yeah, I'd have to like actually dig into some of these stats that they were citing, but
yeah, this is on DApp Radar. I'm looking, by the way. It could be wrong.
Yeah. So, but this post got a lot of attention. Got like almost 500,000 views on X. Over 1,000 likes, stuff like that. And it's kind of like an interesting kind of a narrative thing. I definitely have seen the narrative switch towards more like Solana. Solana is like the new hotness that people are doing all this stuff on, and it is interesting to see. And I wonder how many of these kinds of things are going to be like a one-time sort of a, hey, let's move over, let's generate some buzz by going to the new hot blockchain kind of thing, and how much of that is just like this is the season we're in, and before you know it, there's going to be a bunch of people publicly rage quitting Solana for clout, or I wonder if this is a sign of a greater trend. What are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, just wondering actually here, what will be the next Solana? What will be the new shiny thing that everyone wants to build on? And I do feel like it's not going to end here at Solana. There will be something else. So it's kind of like just moving trains constantly. You just got to get on the right one. Is Solana the right place? I'm not sure. Like I said, transaction volumes are down quite a bit. I think it would depend on like what becomes this US based crypto, right? Like maybe it is Solana, maybe that will be announced, and then that's like a real green light from Trump But more and more, we're actually seeing that they're focusing on other projects, actually Ethereum in a big way. So I think I have a feeling like Ethereum's not going to go away. Solana will slowly lose hype. I could be completely wrong. And then there'll be something else new that comes up that maybe even is better than both of them. I think we're just kind of like waiting to see what that will be. And I don't have any insights to what that will be, but I have no doubt that it'll be coming. As far as Infected.fun, it sounds pretty cool. It's like you send a token and infect somebody else's wallet, and then they're infected, and they can send. Yeah, looking at like this, they have 56.3K followers on Twitter. They probably are more popular than what I saw on DApp Radar. Yeah, and let me see what the Solana volumes, on-chain volumes look like right now. Yeah, no, they're still looking pretty healthy up there. They definitely have come down, but it looks like the trend is right along support to probably climb higher from here. So maybe it was a good move. Maybe that's what they're looking at here for this next wave. What could be happening?
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've kind of noticed. That makes it so hard for me to evaluate Solana critically. Is and also my lack of, I guess, interest in going super deep into it, right? But there's clearly a lot of like innovation and capacity and things like that, and there's also clearly a lot of like faked metrics and things like that. And so that's where it's harder to see, because you can't say fake metrics, throw it out, or you can't say, oh my gosh, look at the trillion transactions. Also, you can't do that. So it just kind of like, now things fall a little bit, but they're still doing pretty well. They're still working hard at whatever. One thing I will just say on like a long term, like when you're trying to evaluate cryptos like long term, and obviously for all kinds of purposes, we're not it's not an investment advice kind of a thing, but like one thing I've noticed is obviously the ability to evolve is super critical, and whenever I see shortcuts being taken, right, those create like a culture of like rewarding bad behavior or rewarding cheating of some kind, and that long term is really hard to shake. And so, for example, on another side of things, like in the early days, the Monero community was extremely hostile and toxic towards just about everyone. And then in the post 2021 era, they just got a lot of new users from outside of the ecosystem, outside, a lot of just libertarians, privacy advocates, all kinds of people who are very nice and reasonable people and productive people. And so that kind of shifted the culture a little bit, but it's still got that toxic core to it, which comes out like the amount of like rage over this Zcash Brave thing you see all over the place. People are writing, hate articles on Naomi Brockwell about saying she's like a Israeli informant and all this weird stuff like that. There's a lot of anti-Semitism in the community too right now, which is very strange to see. It's so hard to outgrow those key kind of like cultural issues. And like I kind of feel like Zcash had some issues on the just being a little too afraid to get like down and dirty with things, a little too afraid to be like public and do just a little bit more like, oh, I bought the stock and it'll do well, it's someone else's problem, and like not this grassroots kind of thing. And then I think Josh, who's running ECC right now, is doing a great job like working really hard to like rehabilitate the cypherpunk vision of Zcash and get that going. But like with Solana's had no serious problem. Like, I mean, they've had like the blockchain go down for a few times and stuff like that, and they keep on fixing that, but they haven't had any really like hard tribulations, I don't think, like to where it's looking like the project might die kind of thing. It's
that anti-fragility of like most things in this space.
Yeah, until they hit that, and they I don't think they're good. Like the kind of lying and fake stuff, the fake it till you make it vibe, I think needs to be overcome at some point. And unfortunately, they don't have any incentive to overcome it yet. So I guess we'll see. Kind of like why Bitcoin didn't evolve too much, because they kept on getting paid for not. They kept on getting rewarded financially for not really improving the tech or solving core issues. So maybe they might evolve, but it might be too late. Maybe Solana's gonna have the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess like it's like what's that ultimate point where something dies? And you can look at all the different projects and be like, for Bitcoin, it would be when the last node operator
Hmm.
dies or turns off his thing. I think if the U.S. could have shut down Tornado Cash, they absolutely would have. If they could have completely stopped it, they would have, but they couldn't. So it's the same thing. Solana, yeah, it went down, but it's not going away. So what is the ultimate, I guess, shelling point or whatever you want to call it of blockchain's demise? It's unimaginable for something like Solana. I mean the node requirements are quite high, so it might be easier to take down Solana and figure out who are operating these nodes. Still probably impossible. How
Yeah.
long did it take to get Osama bin Laden or whatever? It's hard to get every single little rat out there that's trying to hide, right? Every node and shut them down. But that again just makes me like, what is a dollar's shelling point? I don't know. What point of inflation is so much that it has collapsed? And that is easier to imagine than pretty much I can for most crypto projects, especially when they're built over other chains. It's like, how are you going to take them all down? It it might have to be something like, if I had to imagine that, it would be by creating the most friction for as most people as
Yeah.
possible. So yeah, what would that look like? Controls on browsers. So if you're using Brave browser, it's mandated that the Brave browser informs if you try to access this website, some sort of surveillance state, and then they crack down on you. That would be troubling. But at the same time, like, I'm using Windows, and how many people are using Windows? And we trust that Microsoft isn't seeing our shielded transactions from Zcash in our wallet, because
Hmm.
if they are, then they probably have plenty of data on what we're doing in that history themselves. So there's a lot of trust that goes into this, and so there is something about unity, about lobbying, which is
Yeah.
why I'm happy to see Coinbase do that, despite calling them a corporate whatever. They have operated, I think, as best as they can for the overall space. From what I've seen that they've done, and Brian Armstrong. So I definitely get behind them, as opposed to like uh, cowardice. Let's not call it cowardice. And I was just thinking of like ECC, for example, and you were mentioning how back it was cool to be brave, right? It was cool to
Hmm.
be a pioneer and a crypto outlaw, right? When people weren't going to jail, but then when people
Hmm.
started going to jail, it's not suddenly as anonymous as it looks like. It's really easy to trace people. People had blown up and become influential, and they become targets. So I think like Zuko and others just value their actual freedom personally, versus having their name attached to something that could land them in prison potentially for life for something ridiculous,
Yeah. Well,
creating code.
that's kind of an
Yeah.
interesting like balance between the way things were working out because I notice so like Monero and Zcash at the end of the day aren't really that different. They're both limited supply, like UTXO cryptos that are with Monero's upcoming privacy overhaul, I guess in a year or so, they're going to have a lot more similar privacy functions as well. Zcash started mostly transparent with shielded. Now they're doing a hard push to make everything shielded by default. Again, Monero like in that way. The culture has been radically different though. It's kind of weird because they're both trying to do the exact same thing, maximize privacy, and that's it. And the culture is so different. You have like the darknet criminal kind of vibe of like, or also like, anarcho, whatever, agorist, peer to peer kind of vibe of the Monero community. And then you have the kind of more academic think tank type vibe of the Zcash community and business partnerships and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like you definitely need both for a global economy, but then you just going in completely different directions. And so like Monero's gotten lots of hype, lots of usage, lots of other things, but just nowhere near anything like a partnership like with Brave because they're just not in that world at all. And I know
Yeah.
some people in the like I would say the Zcash affiliated people have been much more active in lobbying government explicitly for privacy, like in that kind of thing, like fighting for
That's
privacy
good.
the
Cool.
on the official side of things, like in DC. And like
Yeah.
shout out to Paul Brigner, who's been on this podcast as well, who's doing a lot of that stuff, and then Coin Center and all those people.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Monero people, none of that stuff. But then they're sort of lobbying in the streets, if you know what I mean. They're kind of down there just making sure things are, think that kind of making sure you have like that underground economy always that who cares if you get banned or delisted? Which is kind of interesting how I feel like before Monero's delistings was kind of like at its lowest point as far as, markets and adoption and maybe even reputation. I don't know. But then after all these delistings, it hasn't really taken that bad of a hit from delistings, and has been,
I was surprised. Yeah.
not only solid but like growing, doing pretty well. And it's interesting, like a resilience kind of story, because Zcash is also doing well, but for different reasons. That it's not because they got delisted in a lot of places and were resilient. It's more that they got partnerships with a bunch of things like Brave, and Flexa is another big one, that just kind of like elevated their status in the kind of official world, the listed world.
Yeah.
So it's funny, like the two paths, they're both necessary paths, but they've just been opposite. And I think that's why it's like fighting siblings or something. Why, there's a lot of beef sometimes, is because it's like so similar, but just a very different culture to it.
Maybe it'll be like in the future, especially when AI is transacting using crypto for whatever reason it might be, where like 96% of the world's traffic, internet traffic, is all on the deep web, or like hosted websites. At least 96% are on the deep web. I don't know if it's volumes, but it could be the same, I imagine, for crypto, where you have like Moneros of the world, grassroots kind of stuff that is blowing up in the background that people actually want to use, but people don't trust necessarily Zcash. And I'm not saying it's the case, but they don't trust it simply because it is aligned with perhaps nations or corporations that have shown actions that might not have their best interests at heart. So instead, they use this other thing that gives them the same features. The problem, again, of course, is cashing out. Like for, I think, a lot of folks, is that it becomes difficult when you're delisted, which is why I expected a bigger hit, perhaps. But I think a lot of the folks who use this are holding the longer term, or they're actually using it for the utility that they're built for, right? So there will always be demand for that kind of thing, in this undercover. But yeah, there's something about that, like the undercover world that still exists in crypto, and but I think it's just become so much easier to just be out there, like as opposed to trying to hide it as well, which makes you look worse potentially. Just being out there, so a kind of censorship in that kind of way, like it's fine, just be public, but there are definitely pros to not being public. Like, yeah, I got held up at gunpoint when I was living in Vegas, and I wonder if it was because I was running crypto in the channel at that time, and the folks in my condo, in my complex, told me that there had never been an incident in that particular place for like 19 years. My neighbor said, since living there. So it was a real surprise. I was like, it was probably targeted.
Yeah.
So luckily they couldn't open the door, but I was sitting in my car and they pointed, two dudes with masks, like post-COVID hoodies, pointed a gun in my face. I thought they were just trying to show me something like 10 p.m. I don't know why. I kind of smirked. I reached and drove away, but that could have looked like reaching for a gun. So I could have gotten shot. So that's why, like, you have Jameson Lopp out there talking about swatting, because it is something very real. And I always talk about those stories of folks getting kidnapped, because people should be aware, right? Being public is not the best thing always. So there's something about that, as opposed to just obviously transacting with money privately, but presence. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff is, I think we're going to hit like the next couple years, kind of the worst time for not having privacy, because before it's like no one knew what the hell crypto was. And I knew a friend of mine got detained going through the airport like in 2014 or 15 because he had a bunch of Bitcoin lapel pins that he was selling, and the feds thought that those were Bitcoins, and was just like, where are you taking all these Bitcoins from? Like, dude, it was so like, that's the level of things that we had then. And now it's becoming educated, but like in 5-10 years, everyone's going to have and use crypto. So if you see someone with a crypto shirt, no one's going to get held up at gunpoint for that because it's common. But then in this middle time, when just now everyone knows about it and all the criminals are starting to learn about it, and they're starting to learn how to use a block explorer and look at that stuff. Yeah. And then there's a lot of high profile people, anyone with like a .eth, someone is just going to go write a script real quick to go through every .eth, pull the ETH address, and then just like only, I could actually do this in like 20 minutes after the show, just for funsies, but just like pull the list of like all the .eth people who resolve to an address that has over, 20,000 in assets. in total assets and NFT valuations and everything else, and then just be
You're
like, all
giving
right, now,
folks ideas. I'm kidding.
yeah. Well, that's the thing is like I'd much rather like white hat this today,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
people are
yeah,
like, oh no, and they start
yeah.
acting on it. Then because there's someone who's not telling the whole world on, or 100 people, whatever, on the show about this kind of stuff, who's like already figuring that out and then looking for their next victim. So that's when you're going to start to need like privacy, and I think that people are going to start to wake up to that in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and that's when you're going to start to see no one's going to want a money that doesn't have privacy.
Yeah, it just came to mind this other, I guess, kind of social scam. I don't know what we would call it, just a straight up scam where they're selling iPhones and Android phones that have malware on them, and you'll find them online for purchase. And they have malware that literally steals crypto. So they might be even targeting crypto users with ads and certain things to try to get them to buy this phone. Maybe they haven't upgraded their phone in 4 years and they're like, oh, it's time. Look at this really cool deal. It looks like a brand new box. They eventually load up their wallet and boom, all funds gone. I think there were over 1,000 different victims that I had heard of in this article already. So that's like a new one right there. And they're always coming out. Like when you think you've thought of everything, no. I mean, we saw this
Yeah.
obviously with like hardware wallets where there were fake ledgers being sold and Trezors and so on.
Yeah, that's always just the amount of like nonsense that like people will, also the amount of dumb things people will do. Do you remember when Ledger was promoting the Ledger keychain or like necklace where people are having like a ledger around their neck like that?
Who would do that?
Ledger, as it turns out.
I mean,
And
they
they're
were a
like,
little bit out of touch. I mean, like this
make
whole
a fashion statement, and then like
yeah,
the thing
yeah.
is, people responded positively to that. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do that," and it's like, no,
No,
that looks
no,
like
it takes folks like us to tell you that's a bad idea.
yeah, someone's gonna get that cut off. And I was actually talking with a provider, a hardware wallet. One of my favorites these days, Tangem, which is it gives you 3 NFC cards, just tapping on your phone it works. And they were saying, oh, we should do like custom branded ones for like crypto communities and stuff. And I was thinking like, okay, well, people want to do that, yes, but I'm kind of glad that the one that I have, which I don't have anything on, I just use it to demo how easy you can set up a hardware wallet. It's just all like nondescript and black, like because I don't want to be pulling out some card to tap on my phone and it just says like Bitcoin on the front of it, and people are like, oh, that's where their money is, and then they know to hit you over the head. Like,
Yeah,
I like to
but
keep
then you
that
have
like,
this lady like,
yeah.
oh, sorry, you can finish what you were gonna say.
Yeah, that's just it. Is I don't want to advertise like on the wallet or whatever you have. That's like,
Yeah,
this is the money thing.
but like it's the opposite of the advice from this lady in Britain who I maybe you heard the story. It was like 2 or 3 days ago, and she lost £3 million because well, her
Damn.
husband's £3 million because she tossed his USB. It was in a drawer. It looked like a nondescript USB amid receipts and whatever, and she throws it away. And he comes home and he's like some web developer. He's like, "Hey, have you seen that USB stick?" And she's like, she was horrified. The instant that he brought that up, she knew that it was her fault. And now, like, he's just quiet all the time. That was their fortune, 3 million. And it's like she said, her advice was that for everyone out there, that they should clearly label something and say, "This is the crypto, this is the Bitcoin wallet," so you don't make that mistake. So, like, for the average person, maybe that helps if you're not public. So there's
Well,
like a balance even with that.
I have to say that is actually good advice too. The biggest thief is your own incompetence. I've found
Yeah.
that to be true. I I don't think I've ever lost any crypto that's more than like $5 in like a wallet that like I was testing out and I just didn't even care about. But I almost did, but then I found it like a little like a couple months ago. So that was going to be like, oh my gosh, they finally got me with like a little something I non-trivial, but like no, it's fine. But it is crazy because like the seed phrases and everything, and like if you repeat things, it can be a little bit crazy. I think that that's one of those big barriers to adoption. Is it's not the backup options are okay. They're not awful. They're not great. But it's more that the culture and the vibe, how are you supposed to back up your crypto? Like the best practices are just not universal. People do anything.
Right.
And I
Right.
still had like about a year ago, if like a friend of mine came to me and was just like, hey, I need to, you know anything about paper wallets? I'm just like, God damn it. Like immediately. Cause I'm like, I remember when people use paper wallets and like, that's been like a decade. And like, oh, oh, my dad wants to use it. He wants to get his Ethereum to go buy some land. I'm just like, not even Bitcoin, Ethereum paper wallets. Apparently, my Ether wallet back in the early days
Yeah,
had
yeah,
some paper
yeah.
wallet generator, and it just doesn't
Indeed.
exist anymore. And so I was just like, did you just lose like house buying amounts of money because you put on a paper wallet that became like defunct? We ended up figuring it out for him, thankfully. So that ended up working out well. But just like people had like random files on USB sticks, they had like paper wallets, and then eventually the seed phrase became standard, and now the seed phrase is kind of at peak dominance, I think, and is on the slide down, where now you're having things like the Tangent wallet doesn't even give you a seed phrase unless you absolutely demand it, and you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
have the NFC things, and there you go. And then there's Multisig, which is great because you just add it on your computer, your tablet, and your phone, and we have 2 out of 3, and it works. And then you can add a new device if you lose the other one, and it's just like, all right, so then you literally have to throw away a bunch of devices to lose it. And there's these kinds of things are evolving, but like I just people being dumb. Like I think people aren't that smart. Have you realized this, by the way? Have you gone around into the world and just seen the
Oh yeah, I
peasants
live in
out
the
there?
world. Like since I
Yeah.
deleted the YouTube channel, I've just tried to live in the world. So I like teach piano and drums at a music school now
Nice.
because I've always wanted to do that. Yeah, it's nice. So I get the opportunity, and I worked at a restaurant again for a little while just to have some extra cash, meet some people where I moved to. So I did that. I've met a lot of people. I have a lot of new friends, normies, and they don't talk about crypto nor care about crypto. And it's like they have no real reason to, especially now. It's just so difficult to get into crypto. Back then it was like so obvious. Oh, ETH is $10 and it just seems like it's going to do this. And nobody's paying attention to Bitcoin, but look at the site. It just seems so obvious. But now it's like, when is the right time to tell somebody to get in? They're going to probably buy at the wrong time, lose money, sell it all. They're going to buy a meme coin because it's too hard to make money in Bitcoin now. And yeah, maybe they only have $5, $10 to invest. They don't even know what investing is for the most part. So like I know some dude, he has like $5,000. He's trying to save 10 grand in his bank account. I'm like, dude, like you should probably invest at least some of it. But he's like, nope. I just get paid and I just leave it there. I'm like, you're losing money to inflation and it's only going to get whatever. I'm like, forget it. This is pointless. This is a pointless conversation for most people. I think you have to have that mindset of wanting to invest to preserve capital. You have to have capital to make capital. I mean, that is absolutely true, especially more nowadays in the crypto game. There's no free Bitcoin faucets. It's basically impossible to mine anything profitable these days. It's a different game and a different world. I think the smart thing, of course, for folks would be to actually research this and hold it beyond a week or two or a month or two or even a year or two. But that does take a huge level of discipline that I think most people just are not ready for when it comes to getting involved. So that's a huge hurdle. I think it'll become a necessity, though. I think it really will be on a macro level a necessity going forward, and will continue to be. But for now, it's just like you can't go to a random person and be like, let's talk about phone security. They don't care about that stuff. They just, it doesn't matter in their reality, in their world, in their day-to-day life. And it's not up to us, I guess, to change their mind. I guess
Yeah.
I changed my approach. As opposed to telling everyone and people getting hurt. Now I just share with people who are already interested or showing interest in it.
Yeah, there's a video circulating around X these days of there's like a fireplace with like a active fire going in, and the little goat goes and just jumps into the fireplace, and then they're like pulling him out, and he keeps jumping right back into the fire. Like, no. It's a friend of mine is a contractor, and he paid one of his employees in crypto, and then the price like dipped like 15%, and he just like panic sold, and now he doesn't want to like earn crypto anymore. I just like, dude.
Yeah, that's most people, I would say.
Yes.
Is they try it once and it's not like they're going to try it again. Yeah, you think maybe they're ready for it this time. No, they're just as confused. I mean, you and I do this almost every day. Like at least we think about it quite a bit. Most people do not. They just want to get rich, right? Like friends messaging me, "Can you manage my money? If I give you money, can you invest in crypto for me?" I'm like, "Well, I don't have a license for that." Firstly, second of all, there will be management fees. And third of all, even if we did like some sort of structuring whereby if I don't make money, I don't take, or if you don't make money, I don't take some sort of commission off of managing your funds. Like, you're still opening up yourself, even if you're friends now legally, to all sorts of trouble down the line. So I'm like, I just wouldn't do it. It's hard enough to invest educatedly my own money, let alone somebody else's money. So I just talk on YouTube instead.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Well, about like the money part of things, that reminds me of friends of mine run this organization, this hedge fund called Cyber Capital, and they do just invest people's money for them in crypto. And as far as I know, they've outperformed Bitcoin over the last 8 years relatively
Wow.
consistently. Not a lot, but like they have outperformed. They don't have any Bitcoin. As far as I know, they only have a little bit of Ethereum as well. So just with the rest of the stuff, and it's very it's kind of a tricky thing to do. But like if I had like fiat type money or like in traditional investments and stuff like that, I would probably I'd probably throw them some, and because again, team of researchers and people who get hardcore into the actual fundamentals of the tech, who are like making very careful investment decisions about this kind of stuff. Like it is like a division of labor thing where most people don't have the kind of expertise to do that. And like I kind of feel like I understand the space pretty well after all this time, but from an investment perspective, I don't feel comfortable in making good thing is like I don't care because I'm doing what I want with the stuff that I have. But if I was being like, okay, well, how am I going to maximize my wealth here in crypto? Like I don't think I'm qualified for my own stuff to be like good at that. So it is tricky. You do kind of need that like full-time job kind of thing. Just like I think I know decent like security, like cybersecurity and like storage stuff. But if this was like, now listen, the world's gonna end if you don't. Then I feel like I know 20% what I need to. So yeah.
Yeah, I think like the best way to make money in crypto right now is to like be friends with the White House and just see what's going to come out the next day, or like Friday, which tends to be a sell-off. Just sell on Friday and then buy back on Monday, and you'll probably be all right in crypto.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah, it's kind of
that's
funny.
the game now. Yeah,
It's funny how it used to be like during the heyday of the crypto YouTuber, right? When if Ivan on Tech or like Name Your Person, right, had some kind of if he posted about this next project's gonna, then it would just pump crazy.
yeah.
And that doesn't happen anymore. That does happen at the small caps, maybe like the super new ones, but those are all like pump and dumps at that point. But then I have noticed, so like there was some random crypto channel that was like talking to me, and they have like 4 million subscribers or something like, and I never heard of them. It's crazy. You can have like a 4 million crypto subscriber channel with like several big hosts. I've just never heard of them. And then they're quoting like 100,000 plus a month in sponsorship money and stuff. And I'm like, you gotta be out of your mind. Like this is interesting.
I
But
think
also,
it is a flywheel, though. I swear, there's a lot of buying of bots and stuff, and so they'll take some of that money, push it into buying more, and then the company's also behind it and doing it as well. I just wonder what percentage is real people anymore, and I think that's going to get harder and harder to tell, like which channels are actually legit. And it was a shame though to see folks shilling like certain coins and trying to pump them back then, because it gave us all a bad name in crypto YouTube. It used to be pretty proud to say, yeah, I'm crypto YouTuber back in like 2016. After that, it's just been downhill. It's like a bad word. Like, no, I don't do that.
no, it's like, well, what kind? Like,
What kind? Yeah, right. They don't even ask that.
yeah,
Just straight wanton hate. You're obviously shilling and pumping your bags, and it's like, oh man. And that's all of you.
And that it's kind of funny because now I like to annoy the missus with Web3 speak, because I know that she hates it, and like every once in a while I'll come out in the morning and just say GM, and she's like, shut up, don't say that. And then like,
I got to start doing that.
like
GM.
Sir, spell like Sir SER, and then stuff like that. And
I said it to you before I told crypto Twitter though, GM.
Yeah, you're my first GM.
Yeah,
first GM of the day, right there.
Split into your GMs.
Yes, but the funny one is like this term KOL. I don't know if you hear that these days, but like it didn't exist like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. Like in all my years in this space, they're just like, oh, it's like an influencer or YouTuber or whatever, and then now it's like do you have any KOLs that you've contacted on this? I'm like, what the hell is a KOL? It's like
Yeah,
key opinion leader. Just say influencer, like
I've heard that. I
a
didn't know
normal
what the
person.
acronym was for. Yeah, wow, that's
Or
what it is. Huh?
yeah,
It's
it's like
koalas on. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Koala's optimistic on leverage. Let's settle
Ooh,
with that one.
yeah, that's better. That's better.
Well, so have you kept up much with like the Thorchain drama over the last, I guess, year or so?
No, but like right before starting the show, I tried to read about some of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you had shared how they have. What is it? What was that you
The,
said?
the revenue thing. Let me just throw that
The
up on the
revenue thing.
screen
Yeah, yeah,
and then go into the context. He says Thorchain 24-hour revenue is 3 times Ethereum revenues. What is this
yeah,
timeline? And
yeah,
he shows obviously after like some people were calling in question like the exact numbers because of this, like how things are counted, but the general principle seems to be like so this guy says that figure includes affiliate fees, I think, too. Still pretty good considering because so a lot of these
yeah.
interfaces and sites do take some fees too. So it's not exactly an apples to apples, but it is still a very interesting. It is kind of an interesting metric of just that in terms of like fees and earning and stuff. Thorchain's in the general zip code of something like Ethereum, right? Even
Yeah,
though
yeah.
I think it's probably less. It's not 3 times as much. It's probably less than Ethereum, but it's like in that area. And it's kind of interesting because Thorchain was basically declared a dead project like a few months ago because they did some interesting, shall I say, like leveraged kind of financial products that then the network didn't really have all the capital to pay back efficiently, or if they did, it would cause a death spiral or some. It basically came really close to like a Terra Luna style situation, and so
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, I missed that one completely.
yeah, and then basically they decided to like get rid of all those kind of leveraged financial products that they had, like their lending feature, and basically everyone who had money in those things is getting like an investment token, which is basically like what an old school
Oh,
ICO should have been, meaning it's a token that gets 10% of network fees in perpetuity kind of thing. So which I think is awesome. And the Maya protocol, which is a fork of Thorchain, already has had that token out, their version of that token out since their launch for like a few years.
wow.
So it is cool that it exists, but basically like we came like really close to like the whole thing imploding. And then
So is that the rune token that gets those
no,
revenues? That's
no,
something else.
Rune token is the gas token. It's just the thing that
Yeah.
they use to,
It's
but
so like from my understanding of Thorchain, it's
yes.
basically you're trying to move Bitcoin to Ethereum, and then you have
Hmm.
Thorchain in the middle, right? You
Yeah.
you want so then you buy Rune token from the pool, and then in that pool you'd have Rune token and you'd have Ethereum,
Yeah.
for example. So
50/50.
you would buy Rune, yeah, and then you deposit your Rune over whatever,
Hmm.
withdraw Ethereum, and then you've transacted that way, which is like something that's been trying to be solved by many projects, which is how do we move assets permissionlessly across different blockchains that have different technology, and they seem to have solved that. So like to me that was exciting because I remember Eric Voorhees
Hmm.
talking a lot about it. That's how I heard about it. People
Yeah.
telling me you need to check this out. But like since the kind of launch, I'll admit I kind of didn't follow it very much, so I missed all of that.
Yeah, so it did work really well, and it still has worked well. My protocol's a fork that does the same thing very well. Chainflip is what I would call like a white paper fork, in that it's not at all the same code base, unlike Maya, but it does kind of the same thing. Their pools, instead of a native asset, has like USDC instead or something like that. I'm not too up on Chainflip, but it basically there's a bunch of these that are working out pretty well. It's so the fundamentals of Thorchain are working, quite well, and they almost blew up the whole project through doing some dumb things. Now they're kind of on the mend, but then, when it rains, it pours, because then the Bybit hack happened, and 1.4 billion, and a lot of that.
I think that's where the revenues are coming from.
Well, that's exactly it. Is Thorchain has some pretty decent revenue before that, not super great, but then their revenues over a few, like, they got a lot of revenue because the Bybit hacker was using Thorchain to swap Ethereum to Bitcoin, I guess because Bitcoin's more liquid and they could do more things with it. So which a lot of high profile people were, saying that's like laundering. Although if it's super, super transparent, I don't know how that could be laundering. But a lot of, basically, they got a lot of flack for, well, a lot of front ends like ThorSwap and, Shapeshift and like Trust Wallet and stuff all like blocked the hacked funds. At the protocol level, Thorchain was like uncensored. And like one of the top developers, if not like the top developer, ended up leaving over that controversy because he was like, I mean, I'm putting words in his mouth maybe, but basically he's like, look, people know who I am and where I live. Things are getting too hot. I don't want to go to prison for this in case this does get too hot. And so
Yeah.
there's all that, but they're still there and still kicking. And the thing is, when you have a project like that, even though they're like smashing, getting their ass kicked in a lot of ways, that have constant revenue coming in, and a lot of it, that's something that's like a great, I don't know, I'm sure that's a very like tasty opportunity maybe, but also it's a great candidate for a comeback story because it's not like a dead network that is like, oh, we're reviving it. Like,
Yeah.
to
No,
sort
this is
of like,
absolutely promotional. Like out of everything that they could have used from the Bybit hack, they
yes,
used Thorchain, and that, for better or for worse, will make others want to do the same. Perhaps.
yeah, for
Like what
sure.
worked for Bybit with Bybit? Oh, that was unstoppable and permissionless. All right, let's use that thing.
Yeah, and so for me, Thorchain's like moonshot or moonshot. I need to get rid of this, like, the phrasing of these things. But Thorchain's, rise back to the top of the rankings or whatever you want to call it is a little bit easier because they just have to keep doing exactly what they're doing because they're making money. And if you look at like some of these revenues that interfaces are making, for example, like today, Trust Wallet made about 20 grand from Thorchain swaps, like their cut of it. And so then you're always gonna have companies wanting to advocate for them or or integrate them and things because they get paid. And then as long as there's revenues coming in the network, it's pretty direct shot, which I would say is a contrast with something like Zcash, for example, which Zcash has like fantastic tech that's advanced the state of the art of cryptography several times, and it's they're great, but with the transaction volumes and stuff, it's just like it's less of a sure thing that they're going to like. There's a lot more unknowns of the work that has to be put in to make them kind of rise to the top at this point. Whereas Thorchain just has to like not die for a while, and it's there.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder how, like, just going back to Ethereum, like this Petra upgrade that's coming in the summer, how that sets the stage to potentially make it easier to have zero knowledge shielded proof type stuff on layer
Mm-hmm.
twos for Ethereum, and having privacy on some sort of layer two, how that might be some sort of opportunity that I don't really think has really blown up in a big way, but would be demanded as well by the privacy, like people who like privacy as well as using DeFi and integration with many other things. So I think there's going to be something huge coming soon in regards to privacy there on Ethereum. I don't think that takes away necessarily, because more complexity on Ethereum, the more you add, I think the more complex. You have to trust a smart contract. Zcash, Monero have been running just fine for plenty of time now. Fun fact,
Mm-hmm.
I mined Zcash the first day. It was the first time I ever set up Linux, and I was trying to figure that out. And dang, it was like a trickle because the block reward wasn't fully active. I think was it like a week or two before the full
Mm-hmm.
block reward came out. By which point, the competition was stiff with me mining on one like personal computer. But it was super educational. So yeah, that was fun times. But yeah, I wonder what's going to be happening with Ethereum and how that, if there would be much demand for the privacy. I think there would be, since you have more and more bigger, influential, rich people, let's call it, who are engaging with crypto, and maybe they would want to use something that's more interactable amongst the crypto sphere, like Ethereum, versus something that is kind of associated with shadiness. At least Monero, because of the deep web association and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin, by being like just pseudo anonymous, I don't think fell in the same bucket. They tried to put it in there as for terrorist financing and stuff, but I think with Monero, it kind of stuck as the main market. I suppose that people talk about is using it on the deep web. I don't know if it's still the case. Maybe there's something else. I haven't been on the deep web in ages. Maybe I need to
Yeah.
stop by again. But is like And you were talking about crypto you lost. Like that's like the only time I ever lost $5-10 in crypto was leaving stuff like on Alpha Bay Market back in the day. I just
Oh
like
yeah.
tested it. Yeah. So whatever it went down, I was like, oh dang, it's probably worth a lot now though, whatever it was back then. So that's kind of a bummer. About the lost crypto is when you think back on what it would be worth. So your $5 probably, in 10 years, you'd be like, dang.
Yeah, well, like my first Bitcoin, which of course any crypto that I got was in compensation for a pizza. I bought a pizza with a friend, and they paid me back in Bitcoin. Kind
All
of
right,
fitting.
Laszlo. All right.
Yeah, but it was around point one Bitcoin or 0.15 or something.
That's a lot.
And so
That's
that's
a lot.
like, but it's a lot. It's not life changing though. So it's
No,
not
no.
like oh my gosh, I lost out on like what is it, $8,000 or $9,000 or like, it's
Unless it's the bull market and you're trying to buy the next crypto fun pump
yeah.
thing, and then like that $5,000 would easily be 200K if you win the lottery.
Yeah, but it's like I think I don't know. It's been a fun ride for sure. That's for sure on all these kinds of things. But yeah, as far as the Ethereum thing, reminded me of Railgun, of course, which is kind of like the Tornado Cash 2.0, and they seem to have successfully stayed out of jail, as far as I know, and they seem to be doing a decent amount of volume. Let me actually find. I'll have to find one of their tweets because they seem to be also, again, we're talking about revenue and stuff. They seem to be doing pretty good. And I've already done this on previous shows and stuff, but it's always a good time to throw it up again. This post from them, it says Railgun has done 3 billion in shielded volume. That's enough enemy support, blah blah blah. And so, and they did this chart from one of them, those Dune dashboards and stuff about like the fees that they're getting, and they're making a reasonable. Let me scroll back here. I actually clicked on the wrong one, but they're making a reasonable amount. Where is it, man? It was like right there at the top. They've unfortunately gotten a lot more, active. Oh, in February 2025, the Railgun smart contracts processed over 240 million, earning 600,000 for the Treasury and Rail stakers. So they made. The Railgun DAO made 600 grand in February for doing stuff. So of course that means Ethereum validators and Arbitrum validators and other chains obviously have to take some money as well to process these transactions. But this is just the DAO's revenue is like 600 grand in a month. And I mean that's more than like a lot of, like, for example, I'm pretty sure that's more than like Zcash has done in a lifetime of transaction fee revenue. And so
I think that's smart. They've avoided being the main character. Like they say, never be the main news character. Like you don't want that, especially in crypto. I think there's something about staying low key but continuing to build, and do your mission.
Yeah, for sure. It's got to like, I wouldn't want to be Elon Musk right now just because he's hitting that mind share area where like everyone wants a piece of you kind of thing in positive and negative, and just like can I have some peace and quiet? I like peace and quiet.
Yeah. No, peace I think is the number one thing. Like that we should always. It's up there. It's up there on the hierarchy of needs. I think it should be right at the top, or at the bottom rather. We need peace in order to think straight and to reflect properly. And he doesn't get that. There's no way he could get that.
Peace and pumps, which should be a great like email signature or whatever when you sign off. Hey, peace and pumps, Omar.
Peace and pumps. Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't want to be Musk. I wouldn't want to be Trump. I wouldn't want these things. Like I appreciate the space to explore for myself. I don't like people screaming stuff in my ear. Like I don't know. I guess I've experienced it a little bit, like way more minor in like 2017, but I just like came to value just peace.
Yeah, for
Peace.
sure. Yeah. Well, we should probably wrap this thing up. Keeping you almost 2 hours at this point, but yeah, it's been a great catching up. Thanks very much for being on the show. It's
my pleasure, man. It's so cool to chat with someone who's deep in, and I haven't talked with you in so long, so I was super interested in catching up on the privacy space. So thanks for filling me in on some of these gaps that I've missed, and I super appreciate it, man. You having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now it's the time we call shill o'clock. And so I'm going to just shill for you. Go to Crypto's News, the YouTube channel. So at Crypto's News with a 0. is the handle, and just go sign up. I watched some of your stuff this week as well. It's good stuff. Subscribe to his stuff. Leave comments. Also, if you do come, if you're like one of like the 12 people that watches this show, make sure when you watch his show, you comment. Say, hey, I watched your show there. That's where I came from. Just let people know.
I started off, I think, with like 11 viewers, and I still get that. Like while I'm live, sometimes just 11 viewers, but there'll be other times I get up to like 32. If I'm consistent, like doing videos every day, I will get to like that area. But I don't know. It's like I don't want to force it anymore, the content. So if you guys want to check out like the main stuff going on in crypto, and I throw in some rumors, sentiments, conspiracies sometimes, like how Michael Saylor is that was the big one this week. I don't know if you saw that. Michael Saylor is an industry plant because nobody can figure out his childhood.
Is that the CIA one that had yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah. I'll cover stuff like that, but I can't put it in the hashtags or in the title because, YouTube. So you want to check that stuff out, along with obviously the news and trying to figure out where we're going on a macro level. Yeah, I would love to have you guys over, and I will upload this as well on my channel. So likewise as well, if you guys want to check out Joel Valenzuela, Digital Cash Network on YouTube, you're definitely going to find him. He's super OG, like I've mentioned, and there's a reason I'm chatting with him before many other people in this space. So I think you're going to find a lot of value there. Maybe it's not the flashiest show in the world, but the content I think is absolutely deserving of more. So yeah, check out Joel.
Yes, OG is basically proof of gray. Get where is it? The side, you got a few grays in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, been there since the beginning. Cool stuff. Well, everyone, thanks for watching. Subscribe to Omar's channel, of course, and have a great weekend. And don't get wrecked. And don't just don't do the dumb buy crypto and then it dumps and then sell it at a loss. Just buy whatever you want to use. That's a great thing. And then if you'll make smart investment decisions and think about them, and don't do dumb things. But don't do dumb things. Don't lose your crypto. Don't tell people you have a bunch of crypto. Don't put your public address everywhere for everyone to do, because everyone's spying on you. So don't forget.
Don't buy phones from shady sites. Be careful with that, and check your Bitcoin ATM fees, guys.
Although I am selling secondhand ledgers if anyone wants one. They're at a discount. I'm just kidding. To steal all your nonsense.
Yeah.
All right, cool stuff.
Thank you so much again,
everyone.
Joel. Enjoy your weekend, guys. Thank you for joining us today. Bye, Renee.
Yep.
See ya.
Bye-bye.